Before we get started with the coding and writing some commands in order to push the React application into the AWS cloud, so let us understand what is behind the scene. Okay, so what is given and what is behind the scene. Suppose you are a developer as well as you are holding an AWS account. So this box represents that user, the developer as well as the AWS account holder. So now you are done with the React application development and you are saying that I want to push or I want to publish or deploy this React application files or React application into the AWS cloud. So this state is what it shows. Now in the AWS environment, what are the different services is needed in order to make your React application deployed into the AWS environment? So there are two services we are using here. One is the object storage service, whose AWS S3, and second is the CDN service, which is AWS CloudFront. So we are making use of two services in AWS in order to deploy your React application or in order to make your React application exposed via domain name. So first we are going to do what we are going to do. We are going to push or deploy the files or move the files from your system to the object storage with the help of a command, and it will sit here. Now this object storage will not be publicly accessible, it will be privately accessible, which is the recommended practice. So that's why the user of your application, those who are going to use or see your website or the end users, they are not going to access directly the S3 bucket. This S3 bucket is not publicly accessible. This will only be accessible via CDN, via CloudFront. So that's why the call from the end user, first end user type in the domain name into the browser. It can be any browser, and this is an example that the domain name has been purchased from the godaddy.com, but you can also get it from the Route 53 service of the AWS. So this is just a common, and normally people tend to purchase domain name from GoDaddy and then build application and then finally land the application into the cloud services, right? So most of the startups start like this only. Okay, so it may be that you already having it in Route 53, so don't worry about that. We will also be talking about this. So end user is going to type in the domain name, it got resolved, and GoDaddy will land up that request into the CloudFront, and via CloudFront the request lands onto the S3 bucket. This S3 bucket is private in access, and to make sure that it allows the CloudFront access, basically it allows the CloudFront to read the files from the S3 bucket. This bucket policy is necessary. So here the CloudFront is accessing the S3 bucket via origin access control settings. So previously in AWS we were using origin access identity, but the origin access identity is deprecated. So we should be switching from that older one to the new one, origin access control settings approach, and it gives support of post, put, etc. It also gives support of signed request from CloudFront to S3 bucket. So yeah, so there are a lot of benefits of switching. So I recommend that you switch to this new origin access control settings. Okay, so this is what we are going to. We are going to provision S3 bucket. We are going to provision CloudFront distribution. We are going to put the bucket policy into the S3 bucket, and finally we are going to expose the CloudFront URL over the GoDaddy. We are going to have a configuration in the GoDaddy so that this domain name is going to open up your index.html file, which is basically an entry point for a single page application like React or Angular application. So it can also work for Angular application as long as you are following the guidelines of publishing the files into the S3 bucket. So let's get our hands dirty and get on the lab. Yeah. Okay, so we are sitting here in the folder where we are going to start the React application, start creating the React application. So let's get started and let's create the React application from scratch. So what I'm going to use Vite Plugin in order to create the React application. So instead of using the create React app, because that is having more advantage over it. So let's open the terminal over here. So I have the terminal already open here, I'm sitting here already in this folder. So this folder and this folder is same thing. So I'm going to use the yarn command in order to create the application, React application from scratch. So yarn create Vite. Okay. So it will ask for few options like what kind of project you are trying to build. So let's build like my startup is my project name, and let me just put it here. So this is my project name, press enter, and it will ask like what kind of project you want to build. So I want to build a React application, although other options are here. So I clicked on this. Now keep it simple. I want to build a JavaScript based React application, although you can choose TypeScript, other options. So done. So the skeleton of the React application is ready with a very few seconds, right, in milliseconds. So let's open that in the VS Code, that particular project. So let's open that project. So if you see, we have the my startup folder ready. So I can open this in Visual Studio Code. So this is the files that gets generated with the Vite. Now if you see, we have the package.json file and we have the command Vite command. So before that, we just have to install a few packages here. So just open the terminal here. So we have to install the npm packages quickly. So yarn, typing the yarn will simply install all the packages. Yeah, we are done. Now in order to start this, we just have to type in yarn dev command. So we'll see the outcome. The yarn dev command is just giving us the URL. So in this URL, the local website is ready. So this is the local React application site. So this is how we are not going to make much changes. So this is the site as it is. We are going to publish it into the AWS environment and get it exposed via domain name. Okay. So the next command, in order to bundle it, so the build command is yarn build command. This will build and create a dist folder which contains all the files which is ready to be pushed into the AWS cloud, which is ready to be hosted into the AWS cloud. So how do we do that? So for that, first of all, the requirement is you have the AWS account with you. So we are already having the AWS account here opened. So I'm logged in with the AWS account with IAM permission as admin rights, or you can go with IAM user with only pushing rights to the S3 bucket. That's it. But we are going to create few things here within the account. So I am having the admin rights. So first of all, what is needed as per the architecture diagram? So we have the AWS, we need to create a S3 bucket. So let's get started and let's create the S3 bucket here. Quickly go to the S3 bucket link and then create bucket. So here just have to type in any name. So just take my startup React. Okay, this is the bucket name. It should be globally unique, Mumbai location, or it's up to you. And then finally, every options, we don't have to change any option because it is already private bucket. So we are not going to make it public. Just you click on this create bucket. So that's it. So bucket creation is done. Now what next? The next thing is so this is the bucket, my startup React. So the bucket is empty here. The next is to push your changes, the dist folder files into this bucket. So the bucket is empty, there is no file. So let us add one more step into the code. You can write one more script here, which is deploy. So here you can type in AWS S3 sync S3. So just have to type in the bucket name, my startup dash React. Okay, so just type in the folder name that needs to be synced within the. So we have this S3 in capital. So let's do that. Maybe that is the problem. So yeah, so that was a typo. I'm putting it in capital. So if you see all the files within the dist folder is getting published into the S3 bucket. So it's taking a little time. So let's wait for it to complete. Yeah, so it got completed. So if you go back and refresh it, you will be able to see the files here. Okay, so this one step is done. The second step is to provision the CloudFront distribution. So let's go quickly to the CloudFront distribution. Just go to the CloudFront, quickly search in the CloudFront service in the AWS and provision a new distribution here, create distribution. Okay, you can type, you just select the, basically you have to select the S3 bucket URL that you have created, my startup React. This is the one, right? So make sure that you choose your bucket that you have created, and you don't have to choose the path because the files are placed at the root directory within the S3 bucket. Now the second is, this is the very important option. This is what I'm talking about in the diagram. We don't have direct access, right? We also don't want this public access, right? So by default it gives us the public option, which is the normally the people tend to use, developer first time doing this, they tend to do this to make sure to check few things, but that is I'm not recommending. The second option is recommended, which is also mentioned is recommended. Choose that recommended option and scroll down. So choose this recommended option, and here what you have to do, you have to click on this create control setting. This is what the control setting is, OAC, right? The below one, which is the legacy one, is basically the legacy one is basically object origin access identity. Okay, so you can keep this name as is, or what you can do, you can put it like this, CD and something, whatever name you want to choose, and keep the setting as it is. So origin type is S3, just click on create. So it will create the policy for you. It will not be creating the policy directly into the S3 bucket. That is your responsibility to create it yourself. So but once we click on this done button, then it will ask us to create the bucket policy, right? So let's go down. Few of the settings is very important. So that redirect HTTP to HTTPS, this setting you can choose, and rest of the settings is fine. You can just simply go and yeah, one more setting is also important. Default root object. People tend to forget this thing and they end up having issues or not able to access, or not, your site is not visible. So default is index.html. that needs to be mentioned here, otherwise it will not be able to access your site or not able to see the root files. So that is what is needed. So we'll talk about the other custom domain, etc., other settings for accessing it by Godaddy domain name or other domain names, whatever you have. And yeah, so we are done. So let's click on this create distribution button. So by default they are normally do not choose security setting for you, so you have to choose it, otherwise yeah. So this is the changes that AWS done. So you have to select it. So currently I am not enabling the security protection. So you can also do the security protection. Basically it will enable the firewall in front of CloudFront, so that is additional security, or this is recommended in production, like we normally enable this wrap. So currently we can disable this and quickly click on create distribution. Okay, so this is how the distribution is getting created. Meanwhile, what you can do, like this is the important header where it shows that you have to create the bucket policy into the S3 bucket. So go to S3 bucket permission to update policy, right? So this is our responsibility. So copy the policy here, and you can also click on this button directly. It will land you onto the S3 bucket on which the policy needs to be added. So you make sure that you copied that policy, then only you land here, and then you go down here in this bucket policy section, click on this edit and Control V to paste the bucket policy that they have provided us, and simply click on save changes. That's it. So that are the things. This is the bucket policy which is represented here of bucket policy, right? So let me just walk you through the bucket policy quickly. What it says that only this CloudFront, this is the basically the identity. The CloudFront is only this CloudFront is allowed to access the files, is allowed to fetch the files. So this is what is the policy is about. So let's go back to the CloudFront distribution. Let's see whether it is ready or not, although it takes few minutes to get ready, otherwise it will be in the deploying state. So make sure that you do not test anything until it is done. So once it is done, then only you type in the domain name, type in the CloudFront distribution name, then only you will be able to see through it. Otherwise, if I just simply copy this domain name, copy this CloudFront URL here and type in here, and it will not be giving. Now maybe if behind the scene it is done, it's still showing the deploying here. So let's refresh it. Maybe it is done. It's still deploying, but yeah, our application is accessible. So whatever we are having in the local is in the AWS environment in few minutes or in just few clicks. Okay, so now we are done with the CloudFront accessing your site, and your file is in the AWS. So second, the most important thing, like we have added this step here. So if you are the only developer, it's fine. You can continuously do the development, continuously build it, and click and do the yarn deploy command, run the yarn deploy command. It continuously update over there, and you will be able to see the updated site. Make sure that updated site is visible only when you invalidate the CloudFront distribution cache to let you go there. So what is CloudFront distribution cache is that this is the invalidation. So in order, if you are making some changes and pushing it again, so you might end up have to do some invalidations before you able to see the latest code on the CloudFront. So but it is not a recommended practice to invalidate the entire cache. So yeah, we'll talk about this in the later sections or in later videos. But yeah, I just want to let you know that this is the things that you may be facing, right? So the CloudFront distribution, the code, the architecture wise, we are done. Now the thing is the GoDaddy one. How do we attach a domain name which is already being purchased by you? Now for that purpose, like since it is going to be, I don't want to make this video is longer. So I've already done that, the same thing in the other distribution, this one. So I will walk you through what are the next steps. So the next step is to go to the ACM in the AWS. So certificate manager, you have to go and make sure that you select the North Virginia region, not the Mumbai region in which your bucket is or in which your CloudFront distribution. CloudFront distribution normally always be in the North Virginia only, because they are supporting the edge locations, etc. So make sure that you go to the ACM in the North Virginia region, and you have to request a certificate. Okay, so you click on this request a certificate, request a public certificate over here, and here you have to type in the domain name, whichever domain you have with you. You have to type in the domain name and then click on this request button. So to take you to the already created one, this is the one that I had created. So we have the domain name nurserykaksha.com, and we have added two entries here. So one is the normal domain name, other one is star.nurserykaksha.com. Instead of star, you can use the www.nurserykaksha.com or whatever your domain name. I'm sorry about that. So a couple of entries you have to do here, and then this will give us two records, two entries here. They are similar looking. So what you have to do, you have to open your GoDaddy account. In the GoDaddy account, you have to make an entry to these two. Make an entry of this CNAME into the GoDaddy account. So let me show you that entry. Okay, so this is the GoDaddy account which I have for the nurserykaksha.com. In this GoDaddy account, this particular CNAME entry has been added here. If you see the CNAME entry, the certificate manager have this CNAME name and CNAME value. So most of the people end up doing the wrong thing here. They normally copy this as a CNAME and copy this as a CNAME value, entire CNAME. The problem here is we don't want the entire thing. We just want the prefix. So if you see through this, we only have prefix here. So, and the value has everything in the value. So make sure that the only prefix is added here, not the entire CNAME name, and in the value you have to add the CNAME value. So this entry you need to do in the GoDaddy. The second entry that you need to do in the existing GoDaddy account, you might already have the www entry with your domain name. Like I was having www with nurserykaksha.com as a entry over there. You need to delete that entry and make a new entry, and against that you need to add the CloudFront URL. That CloudFront distribution URL. Basically, in your case, you will be having your own CloudFront distribution URL. So these two entries are necessary to be added, and then what you have to do, you also have to add a forwarding here. In the forwarding, you have to select. Let me show you. HTTPS, you have to select HTTPS here, and you have to write www dot your domain name. Here we have narsingoption.com, and click on save, and after a few minutes you will be able to see your site up and running. So let me show you quickly, like in HTTPS narsingoption.com. Make sure that you type in www.narsingoption.com. So you will get to see the site is up and running, and it is via domain name, not via CloudFront Distribution. So yeah, so that the similar thing that you can follow after building the React application, or while you are building the React application, you can follow the same steps in order to deploy your React application into the AWS cloud. So in the upcoming sessions, I'm going to talk about how we can deploy the React application into the GCP or Azure cloud. And the thing is that the crux is that you need to understand that ultimately, whether it is AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, two things are really common, which is using the CDN. Second is object storage. Now the name of the CDN may be different, the name of the object storage may be different based on different cloud, but the idea is that the accessibility of the object storage should be via CDN, and the CDN and the domain name should be landing the request into the CDN and then to the object storage. So yeah, so that's it for this session. Hope you like this session and understand it very well. And if you do have any queries, please post your queries into the comment section, and we'll cover a lot of things into the AWS going forward, as well as for other clouds. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.